Hey, what's up everybody? It's Isaac from Alchemy here with episode 14 of the Alchemy Devlog. In this episode, we're going to go through what's new on the platform since last time, including some tactical mode updates. We've got right-click ability on tokens. We've got a fancy new game lobby that you'll be greeted by when you join a game. We've got motion overlay browsing, spectator mode UI updates, and a whole bunch more. We'll also take a few moments to talk about where the team's going next and go through some of the questions that have come in since last time. If you have a question of your own, you'll find a link to a form where you can submit that question down below in the description. Let's dive in. All right, let's start by launching into my Devlog 14 game and take a look at some of the new in-game features for tactical mode. I'm going to go ahead and add a new scene here. I'm going to get the Overgrown Magic Forest from the Chepeku map bundle and add that in. And I'm also, let's grab a third scene here so I can show filtering. Shadow Fortress is a good one that I like to use. We'll add both of those scenes to the game. Okay, the first thing you might notice is the scenes panel now has a filter bar at the top. So you can filter your scenes when you end up in a game that has, 20 or 30 or 100 scenes. You may not know how to find the one that you need at the moment, and you'll be scrolling up and down. Well, now you can use this filter box up here to type in a filter to filter your scenes down. You can also click this little drop down to filter by various bits of metadata that are available. I think these are tags from the scenes themselves. So for example, if we wanted just Chepeku scenes, which happens to be all of these, because these are both Chepeku scenes, and then we never filter out the active scene here. You could add that filter in. If we wanted to just see like the Shadow Fortress scene, for example, we'd type in Shadow, and now we've filtered our list down to the active scene as well as any scenes that match on Shadow. So pretty useful filters to get your list of scenes pared down a little bit. But let's go into some of our tactical mode updates. I'm going to go ahead and play the Overgrown Magic Forest scene here and go into tactical mode. All right, first up, the motion setting here for your game now applies to animated battle maps as well as your background. So if you have motion disabled, your animated motion battle maps will now pause as well. And this is your own setting. So other people in the game can have the motion playing on the battle map, same as it is in a scene. But for you personally, if you want to disable motion, this now applies to animated battle maps as well as the scene that's in the background. So for example, over here on the dim light scene, motion's still disabled here. If we go over to our Shadow Fortress scene and pop open tactical mode here, this is no longer animating as well. All right, let's head back over to the Overgrown Magic Forest scene and take a look at it. One thing you'll notice here immediately popping into tactical mode, we've shifted the map over a little bit. And the reason for this is to make room for, the different panels. So if we were to have an NPC in the scene and we were playing that NPC, we'll make it visible via drag and drop there. We'll play this guy, and then the map lines up nicely with the left side stuff that's over here. You can, of course, still drag it over there if you want that stuff to be behind there. You can zoom in and out, but the default placement for the map is now shifted over a little bit, and we've zoomed it out a little bit as well. So it's now zoomed out about half what it used to be. So you get a nicer, larger view of your tactical map when you pop in there. You can also zoom out a little bit further than you could before. It's like, I think it's 15% more zoom out capability than you had before. So you can really get far out for those big maps. And of course, still zoom in really close when you need to as well. The other thing new in tactical mode is the ability to right click on tokens. So when you place a token out on the battle map, you used to have to click on it and do stuff to it from this pop-up menu down here at the bottom, like view its details. But now you can just right click on a token and view straight from the token. It's a lot faster, both from like the amount of distance you have to move your mouse perspective, and it's just overall a faster experience. So I definitely recommend adding that into your muscle memory here soon. But it's a very nice way to interact with tokens in tactical mode. All right, next up, we've got a small but mighty improvement for motion overlays. So in those scenes where you have a motion overlay, for example, on this scene, we could add some cool overlays to it. The way that you select your motion effect for the scene is now a nice kind of preview list where you can see sort of what it's going to look like when you apply it, as well as search and filter. rather than the simple drop-down list that we had before. Okay, well, let's just grab a green brazier. That could be fun for a forest scene, some sort of magical spirit in the forest. Oh, and of course, motion is disabled from earlier, so I have to re-enable that to be able to see it. But yeah, these are now nice and consistent with the way that you browse other assets, and you can kind of see that preview before you select what it is. So nice little update for that. Spectator mode has gotten a UI overhaul. This is kind of driving us towards the streamer mode and spectator features that we'd like to have live for version 1, but we're not quite all the way there yet. But let's take a look at what's new this week. So I'm going to go ahead and enable spectators on this game. This is live in production, so we'll see if anybody pops in. But meanwhile, I will hop over to one of my other accounts and take a look at that game myself as a spectator. So I see it here live in the list of live games, and I've jumped into it now. So the circle button at the bottom of the window is now gone. That simply had 2 options for quitting the game and for subscribing to the game, so it would add it to your library. That's gone. That's now moved down into the gear menu that's in the bottom right corner of the game window. So you can pop that open and choose to subscribe, which will add that game to your library, so you can click into it later. You can copy a link to it to share a link with your friends to spectate the same game. And as a spectator, you can now disable motion as well, which is a great thing to be able to do. And then you can, of course, quit the game as you could before. We've also moved or renamed the spectators panel at the top to watchers, and this is available to watchers as well. They can see who all is in the game. And this little indicator here on the right is a bug that's on my list to fix today. Over here on the GM side, we see that account here in the watchers list as well. But the primary thing changed here is that the spectator mode UI has been shuffled around quite a bit, cleaned up. You can kind of just enjoy more of the game and have all of your settings nicely tucked away in this menu. One other thing that's changed since last time is the party panel has gotten a nice little refresh. Over here, you kind of saw it with the Watchers tab earlier, but we've moved the status indicator out from on top of your avatar and to the right side of the party panel, so you can see whether you're online, whether you're muted or unmuted, away, disconnected, and the indicator for speaking is now around your avatar. We'll add another person to this game to show you what that's about. Back on my test account now, I will jump into that game as an actual player, and you'll see in the party panel we have the avatar and the muted indicator here. If I go ahead and unmute myself, you'll see that disappear from there, and it shows unmuted when you hover over that. If I mark myself as away, for example, that turns yellow. So all the functionality that was on top of your avatar has just moved over to this kind of dedicated spot for it. So back over on my other account, you can see here the ring that's lighting up because I'm speaking on that account. You can see that that happening here around my avatar ring. And now that I've stopped talking and muted myself, I've got no more status indicator here, or speaking indicator, I should say. And I'll mark myself as here. And yeah, that's about it for the party panel update. You can see offline, all the things you could see before. It's just been kind of moved around a little bit, nicer and cleaner. All right, let's switch gears a bit and talk about the new game lobby screen. I'm going to launch this new Wakeworm's Fury game that I've created, and that will bring us to the game lobby screen. So the first thing that you'll see is this nice overlay of the current scene in the game. You've got a button to go back home, and you've got an overflow menu here with a few options. You can copy a link to your game, and you can edit your game if you're the GM. This pops up the modal with all of the good bits that you need to update your game settings. For example, if you wanted to invite another player, you could do that here. Up in the top right, you've got audio settings. So this is actually playing the scene audio, as you can hear now, and you can adjust it using this volume slider up here in the top right to get your game music dialed in exactly how you want it to be. I'll give that just a tiny bit here. Hopefully that mixes in okay. The most important parts here probably are that you can select your microphone that you want to use, unmute yourself, and you can select the camera that you want to use. For example, I'll pick my laptop camera and then turn it on to preview what I'm going to look like when I join the game. And then if you had anyone else in the game, they would show up down here in the Players Online section. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my player account and jump into that game. And you can see here in the bottom, it shows Players Online. You can see that my other account is here online. I'm going to go ahead and jump into this game without adjusting any of those settings, except maybe audio, just in case. Okay, now back on my other account, you can see down here in the bottom that my test account is shown as a player online in the game here from the lobby screen. So I can see who's connected to the game before I get into it. And then clicking the Join Game button will fade out the UI. And since I had enabled my camera, the camera drawer is open by default, and I'm ready to go. Pretty cool new update for giving you some more options before you get into your game, and you know, it looks really nice too. Okay, let's head on out of here and talk about the content roadmap. So in the What's New section of the app, you now have a new tab. So normally you have your What's New for the week, which this doesn't have this week's release yet. You've got the roadmap for the version 1 features, and now you have a new version 1 content roadmap, and this also goes beyond version 1 as well. So you can see all of the titles that we're working on. Here's a little legend at the top that shows you upcoming, conversion, design, mechanization, enhanced, and complete. And enhanced is a modifier on top of each of these other statuses here in this legend. So if you look down here at, for example, Call of Cthulhu's Investigator Handbook, you've got the mechanization status on it, as well as the star that tells you that this is going to be an Alchemy Enhanced title. So everything that we're working on is here, and you can kind of see the status at a glance, as well as things that are coming later on after version 1, the post V1 content, things that we'll be working on later this year and the beginning of next year. Lots and lots and lots of good stuff here. So keep an eye on this if you're interested in what we're up to content-wise. Let's take a look at the upcoming roadmap, things that we're going to be working on next. So you can see we've crossed out a few things since last time, things like right-click action menus. We're currently working on drag and drop reordering for initiative and for custom games initiative. So that's going to be coming out here in the next couple of weeks. We've got more keyboard shortcuts to do in the game UI, especially. And for tactical mode, we're going to be rolling out snap to grid for hex maps, hex grids. So you'll be able to snap those tokens in. And I already mentioned the initiative list for custom games. And then we're going to be starting on support for a new game system in the next couple of weeks. I think we're going to be starting with Kids on Bikes 2nd edition. So if you backed that content deck on our Kickstarter, we will likely be sharing some beta information with you in the near future, few weeks probably, with information about how to test out that Kids on Bikes stuff. Supposing we stick with that plan in the next couple of weeks. We've got lots of moving parts here, so you never know when things could change. So we'll be working on that. We've also got random roll tables in progress right now. We'll be working on those soon. You'll have a new action type for random roll tables. They'll be text-based for this first release. You can choose a range of die roll results and then text that comes out of those based on the result. And we'll be expanding that in the near future to have more powers as well. Okay, let's get into some Q&A. We've had a few questions come in since last episode, and I will do my best to answer those for you now. I'll head over to my handy dandy Q&A universe that I created here and jump into the questions for this week. All right. Tyler S. asks, in my limited testing, I wasn't able to figure out how to share an image in a scene with my players. Would it be possible to add a right-click option to quick add images from the scene notes screen or the story section to handouts? Yeah, wow, that's a great idea. So you nailed it. One thing you could do today is just create a handout with that asset that you want to share with them and then share it with the players who need to see that asset, that handout. and they'd be able to pop that open from their handouts panel. But we do have a task on the version 1 list to share things to the journal. And I think one of the things that could be cool to share to the journal is images in your Markdown. Just as you've said, we could add like a right-click option to them and share that straight to the journal. I bet we could do that fairly easily to bring those out of your notes and into the journal just as an embedded image right there in the journal. So love that idea. And I'm going to put that on our backlog right after this. Thanks, Tyler. Okay, next up, Portland asks, the platform is looking even more cool every week. Congrats. What I miss more to play my favorite games and customs is random tables and customizable dice, not just numeric value. Can you share your plans and vision on those? Have you considered the option to add more than one art in a scene like you can do in tactical mode? I know that we could just add more scenes, but something evolves in the same scene, and that could be nice. Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we have roll tables coming soon, so that part of your question will be addressed here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be adding more power to roll tables as we go through our development process on that. Customizable dice faces, I think we're going to need that for a few of the systems that we have on our V1 roadmap, so we'll be tackling that very soon in some fashion. I don't have the exact details in front of me at the moment, but it'll be cool. And we have considered the option of adding more than one piece of art in a scene, something that we internally refer to as scene variants. We will likely be doing something with that in the future, but I don't think that's going to land before V1 because we are pretty strapped for time already with the V1 feature set that we have set. But in the future, that's certainly something that we'll consider again after we get V1 out in the wild. All right, Scarlet Song asks, hello. Will you ever be implementing a toggle to hide overlays in chat? I'm really interested in applying Alchemy to a TV at the table situation since its effects and music are really suited for interactive play, and I think its capabilities for atmosphere building are really interesting. Thank you so much for all that you do. I'm so excited for the Kickstarter rewards and the games and stories that will come from them. Take care. Thanks, Scarlett. We're excited too. It's going to be a lot of fun to finally get all this stuff out there. I would say for today, your best option for a smaller, streamlined UI for sharing at the table on a TV screen would be to use Spectator mode. Earlier in this episode, I talked about the new Spectator mode UI updates. It's nice and clean. You could enable Spectator mode for your game and then load the Spectator UI on your TV. Not exactly ideal from, if you weren't planning on having Spectator mode enabled. But we will be doing something similar to this in V1 for Spectator mode. You'll be able to share some links there and do some other stuff. In terms of just hiding the UI, we have gotten that request a few times. I'm not 100% sure that we'll do something like that, but maybe we could throw in like a keyboard shortcut that just lets you hide a few panels, or sort of like on a Mac where you can press F11 or whatever to show your desktop. Maybe something like that. We could play around with it, but I would say your Spectator mode UI is probably the best bet. Very long term, we do have plans for a TV mode. I'm not going to reveal too much about that, but it is a really cool idea, and I'm excited to get that out there. Komacon asks, will we have the ability to change the layout or theme of the worlds that we create? For example, changing colors of the borders and icons, etc. So we need to build a bunch of stuff for Alchemy Enhanced for V1 that'll include changing colors and some of the layouts and themes for games specifically. I think you might be mentioning universes here specifically. We don't have plans to add that sort of capability to your custom universes today, but we will be building a lot of the plumbing to make that sort of stuff happen. So maybe after V1, we can look at some ways to bring those tools to you. All right, that's all the questions for this week. Thank you all so much for sending those questions in. If you have questions of your own, head on down to the description below to get a link to that Google form where you can submit your question for a future episode of the Devlog. Got a kid running around back there. All right, that about does it for this episode of the Alchemy Devlog. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please head on down below, hit that like button, subscribe for future updates. It really helps us get the word out there about Alchemy, so thank you very much for doing that. As I mentioned earlier, you can submit questions down below. I've got other links down in the description for you to check out as well. Thanks for watching. Let's go play some games.